Hello, Giants fans, and welcome to the Valentine's Views podcast here on YouTube. Please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. With your Giants off to a 1-3 start, we're in sort of a little mini bye here with the Giants having played on Thursday, not playing again until Sunday. So we're going to kind of do a little quarter poll assessment of the Giants, talk a little bit about what we've seen, a little bit about some of what's been written and said out there, and all of the goings on with the Giants as they try to get things right going forward. And here to help me do that as is good friend Patricia Traina of Locked On Giants and New York Giants on SI. Look at that, Patty. I got it right. How about that? I got it right. Fix that sign behind you.
Bravo.
Fix that sign behind you.
I gotta get in touch with the guy who does this woodwork. He's really good, but he's also so good that he's been busy. So I'm
That's what
working on it.
that's what you said the last time I had you on the
Well, the
show,
guy is
Patty.
good. He's booked. He told me he's booked for like the next several weeks. Don't think I haven't tried, but he knows I'm looking for a new sign. So
All right. All right. Well, we'll find other things to give you grief about as we go
I'm
along
sure
here,
you
Patty.
will.
I'm trying. I have to give you grief, Patty.
I know.
You threatened to put me in jail the other night at the game.
Yeah, but you
Which is my
deserved it.
granddaughter is the only one who gets to do that, Patty.
Yeah, but who do you think telegraphs to her to put you in jail?
Oh, by the way, I told my wife that you threatened to put me in jail, and my wife is not happy with you.
Oh.
See, my
Maybe
wife,
she'll be
my
happy if I send you a picture of my dog. I know she likes dogs. Maybe
yes,
that'll ease
yes,
your
yeah. She
feelings.
might be happy. She might be happy with that. Anyway, Patty, let's stop this nonsense here and talk about some of the nonsense that we've seen so far in the 2024 season from the New York Giants. And Patty, I have to start just so folks know. I also did Patty's show on Monday, so check that out over on Locked On Giants if you can stand to look at my face for another half hour or so. But check out that shiny bald top there. It's awesome. I know it's great.
I'm
It's great
blinded. I
video.
I gotta get my sunglasses at this point. It's like
Geez,
before I go
yeah, I
blind.
know it's fantastic video, Patty. I know. But anyway, Patty, I want to start in a place with something that I think is complete and utter nonsense. Speaking of nonsense, and that is the Chris Canty rant the other
Mm.
day that after 4 games that Brian Daboll is already, in his words, toast as coach of the New York Giants. And my take on that is so the 13 games that are still to play are pointless. Um, you can make an argument that while Daboll has culpability, you can make an argument that with a couple of things going differently, the Giants could be 3-1. Um, my thought is that's just ridiculous. Makes great radio, TV sort of hot take nonsense. But I find that to be ridiculous that you've made that choice in your head, on the head coach already. Just your thoughts on that whole situation.
Yeah, I wrote about that too over on New York Giants on SI. And look, I love Chris Canty. I get along with him. He knows me. I know him. I've had him on the show before. I don't agree with him. I mean, look, he is paid to give the hot takes. He is paid to get people talking, get us writing about, what he has to say, mission accomplished if that's what you set out to do. But no, I'm sorry. Brian Dable, he's not perfect. There are things he can do better. Even Dable himself has admitted it. But to say he's toast, when you look at certain things, like for example, is he the one dropping the passes? Is he the one overshooting the receivers? Is he the one who's not getting to the quarterback with the pass rush or letting these receivers, opposing receivers get big plays? No, it's not. The roster is what it is. All the coaches can do is to put the players in the best possible position to succeed. They can, teach them the fundamentals and make sure they are up on that. And I think, for the most part, the Giants do a good job with that. And I do think, Daboll having taken over the plays, there have been, people will say, oh, he's too conservative, he's too this, he's that. You look at some of the film, he's actually put the offense in a good position to have success on certain plays. But if the execution isn't there, how is that his fault? Now, this isn't like, the situation with Ben McAdoo or with Pat Shermer or with Joe Judge. Those guys were toast. They lost the locker room. But you tell me, Ed, have you seen this Giant team not play hard for Brian Daboll? Have you seen this Giant team mail it in? I haven't. And last year they could have done it. They could have said, half our team is injured. We're on our third quarterback, our fifth kicker, our seventh offensive line combination. But they fought. They fought despite, the odds being stacked against them. And this year, we're 4 games in. And as you said, they could have easily flipped the script and been, won 2 games that they lost. I don't think Brian Daboll is toast. Not at all.
No, I would agree with you. And you talked about the locker room, Patty, and I had written down in my notebook here. That's another thing I wanted to ask you about. I don't think there's any locker room issue right now, but the question of loser fatigue came up the other day in one of Daboll's media sessions. And look, you were in the locker room, as was I, Thursday night after the game. I did not sense at all offensive players turning on defensive players turning on offensive players giving Daniel Jones the side eye for a couple of missed throws. I didn't sense any of that. I didn't sense any of the sort of finger pointing at the head coach, or I didn't hear anybody talking about, we just have to play hard because we have to put film out there for the other 31 teams too, because we don't know what's going to happen here. I didn't sense any of that. Now that could happen, but I don't sense that there's any quit in this team. I sense that they were ticked off more than anything else. I don't know what was your sense.
Yeah, I mean, they were disappointed. They everybody I talked to was like, if I had done this, if I had done that, maybe the results had been different. So guys are looking them in the mirror for reasons why it's not getting done. They are pointing the finger at themselves. They're not pointing it at, the guy next to them or the guy across the room from them. So that's positive.
Right.
And, you think about it, Ed, I mean, the little things keep piling up, the drop passes, the inaccuracies, the penalties, that stall drives, they all add up. And the problem that with this team right now is they're not good enough to overcome those mistakes for whatever the reason, whether it be because they don't have the personnel or something happens or just changes everything. But they're, Wandale Robinson, I think, said it best the other day. He said, you know, a little thing here, a little thing there, we fix that and we can get right back on track. So no, they're not giving up. They know that, that a lot of what has happened has been self-inflicted. The exception you can maybe make is the Washington loss when they didn't have a kicker. So, they know, and
Right.
at least they're not pointing, and that locker
Right.
room is not splintering right now.
No, their margin for error is very, very thin. They have to make the plays that are presented. Um, they have to figure out a way to get 7 instead of 3. Um, Before we move completely off the subject of Brian Daboll, though, when you look at Daboll and maybe his culpability, in this start, I guess there's 2 things that bother me, and I want your comment on these. 66-6 in 2 straight, or 68-6, excuse me, in 2 straight season openers. And also the fact that my feeling is that there have been times when I thought that Daboll probably should have been a little bit more aggressive than he's been. There have been a couple situations, the 4th and 3, the 4th and goal at the 3 we can talk about. But there have been a few situations where I thought the Giants got into plus territory, into areas where shots were available, and instead they turned around and handed the ball off. Just your thoughts on what you think is Daboll's culpability in the way the Giants have started.
And I've been saying this now for 2 years that I don't like the way Daboll approaches the preseason games. All right? You have the second youngest team in the NFL right now. All right? Or at least as of opening day, it was the second youngest team. This is not an established team like, say, the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that has a veteran quarterback that's won you some games, has superstars at tight end and across the board. This is a team, the more reps they can get in game scenarios, the better. And, I kind of understand what Brian Daboll was trying to do. His thinking is, oh, if we have joint practices, that's going to take the place of the preseason games. No, it is not. It is not the same. The in joint practices, the quarterback can't get hit, so therefore maybe he develops a false sense of timing on the pass rush. And there's no tackling, so maybe the tackling gets a little sloppy when you get into the game. I always believe when you have a young team, especially a team that has not won and that you're trying to get to the next level, play them in the preseason. All right. I could see not playing them in the first game, but if think about it, Ed, they did not play in the preseason finale against the Jets. They went how many weeks before between
You're
having their starters play in week 2 and then the opening game? What was
you're
it, like
preaching to
5
the
weeks?
choir, preaching to the choir on that one, Patty, because
So,
you're asking these guys to go 3 full weeks
mhm,
without competition and
mhm,
then be ready to play opening day.
right?
And so I agree wholeheartedly on that one. And I
Yeah.
think did you have something else you wanted to talk about with Dayball?
Yeah, I mean, and as far as, the conservative, nature of the game, you wonder, and nobody will ever admit this. You wonder about the confidence. If you're seeing your quarterback overthrow or underthrow often, if you're seeing guys drop passes, can you honestly say, my confidence hasn't been dented? I mean, I look at that 4th and goal play from the 3-yard line, and Daboll said, "Oh, I wanted the points." That to me, I was like, "Okay, so you didn't trust your offense then to get into the end zone? Is that what you're saying?" And he won't say that. He won't admit to it, but,
Mhm.
I think that's fair to wonder if that crossed his mind. So there are times that he is a little too conservative, where, look, if you're trying to win games, sometimes you got to take chances. But here's the other thing. I think there are also times when he's just stubborn. All right. Not having the backup kicker in week 2. We've talked about that a lot. Force feeding Theo Johnson into the offense as an every down tight end. So, I mean, these are just some examples that you sit there and you say, okay, I understand it's a fine line. You want to show you have confidence in your guys, but at the same time, if they're just not ready to take that next step, give them what they can handle, let them master that, and then gradually improve them. Don't throw them in the deep end right away until you can see that they can swim in the shallow end of the pool.
Right. We talked about that a little bit on your show as well, with in reference to the playing time between Theo Johnson and Daniel Bellinger, and I think you're right. I think as much as they love Theo Johnson's potential, I think there's an argument to be made that they're doing this backwards,
Mhm,
that they're force feeding him instead of giving him things and allowing him to succeed at a few things before trying to ask him to do everything.
mhm. And that's how potentially, especially if there's frustration, you can ruin a guy's confidence.
Yeah. Patty, let's talk about, speaking of confidence. Um, I don't know what the issue is with Daniel Jones in the deep throws. Okay. I don't know. Is it physical after neck and ACL injuries? Um, is it just confidence? I mean, Daniel Jones, Darius Slayton said it the other day. He said, in talking to Jordan Renan of ESPN, he said, look, he said, every single day for the 2 years that Joe Judge was head coach of the Giants, Daniel Jones heard, do not turn the football over. Do everything possible not to turn the football over. Do not take any chances. Don't take any risks. So a kid that was good at the deep ball under Pat Shermer became a quarterback who wouldn't throw anything deep or into tight windows. Brian Daboll is trying to break that habit and trying to bring back the aggression in Daniel Jones's game. And you just wonder if there's still some after effect, if he's just, is he guiding the ball a little bit, is he, is he really still reticent to really let that go? I don't know, but you can make an argument that in both the Washington game and the Dallas game, that if Daniel Jones makes a couple of throws, they win those games. So people on the comments on my site and on Twitter and all that, they want to make this simple. They want to say, oh, if the Giants had a better quarterback, they'd be 3-1. I mean, is this just a quarterback problem, or is it, yes, a quarterback problem, but there's more to it than that?
I don't think it's just a quarterback problem. I think there's more to it than that. I think, you raise a good point, or I should say Darius Slayton raised a good point. When you hear something week after week after week, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Now you become afraid or
Mm-hmm.
reluctant, maybe is a better word, to where, okay, maybe, do you trust is he trusting what he is seeing out there? And I just wonder, just based on overthrowing or maybe underthrowing, is Daniel Jones saying to himself, I can't turn it over. I can't have this mistake. So I'm going to put the ball maybe a little behind and hope my receiver adjusts, or a little in front of him because I've got confidence in his speed. I don't know. Maybe subconsciously that's what's going through his head. I don't know. He obviously is not going to admit to that. He's going to just say, look, I just got to get better, which, they all do. I mean, nobody is ever 100%, the great one. But that is a concern. And, Daboll has tried to work with him to say, look, let it go in practice. If you have to turn it over, that's what practice is for. We don't get to see the practices during the regular season. So we don't know what they are working on with him or how he is doing. Is he turning the ball over? Is he not? Is he taking chances? Is he trying to fit the ball into tight windows? We don't get to see that. So it's kind of hard to say. We only see what we see on game day. And what we see on game day is a guy who sometimes looks like he's not trusting what he's seeing there, or he's playing it, oh, I should maybe throw it a little short because it looks like the defender is going to jump the route and get the ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks to me like he's just not completely comfortable just letting it go.
Yeah.
Just let it go. Trust yourself to put it in the right place. They do those drills in training camp where they drop the ball into a net, or they throw the ball 30 yards down the field and they see who can put it in the net the most times, or they see who can throw it in the bucket the most times. And you have to just let the ball go. And I think that's, whatever the reason is, he's not doing it.
Well,
And
there's one other thing that I'll throw out there that I don't think anybody's talked about. Daniel Jones knows that the Giants were looking to replace him this past spring. Do you think that maybe subconsciously, this is just a guess on my part, he's thinking to himself, I can't turn the ball over? Maybe that is contributing to his reluctance to take deep shots, or his what we have seen with the deep shots. Is he so concerned that if he turns the ball over, he's going to go to the bench and he's going to be out of a job at the end of the year. Could that be a part of it? Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the bottom line with Daniel Jones is I think we know what he is at this point in his career. You can look at the advanced analytics and you can point to good ones with Daniel Jones. I think in what's called expected points added, the last time when I looked earlier today before the week 4 games, Daniel Jones leads the league at the quarterback position in expected points added in EPA, which is insane.
Hmm.
But he's at the bottom of the league in the big time throws and the completion percentage on the longer stuff. So twist the numbers any way you want. What Daniel Jones is a middle of the road NFL quarterback. There are a lot of guys better than Daniel Jones. And whether Giants fans want to be honest about this or not, there's a good number of quarterbacks out there who aren't as good as Jones either. So he's just a middle of the road guy. There's a ceiling with Jones. Things have to be right around him. You get drops, you get penalties at key times, you get turnovers at bad times. He's not going to be a guy that plays through that stuff and wins you football games. He's just not.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because he's got the tools. He's got, the characteristics that, you would like in a quarterback. But at this point, I think it's fair to ask, is he damaged in terms of his confidence, in terms of, all that he's had to go through? Is it just time to say, look, let's cut our losses here and move on? And again, I point back to what went on during, the spring. And I found that interesting that the Giants let that go out there, even though, their justification was, well, we talked to Daniel to tell him what we were doing. But still, Ed, that's like, if your boss came to you and said, hey, Ed, I don't want you to be alarmed, but we're having Patty Traina come in to talk.
Yeah,
And
that that
my
that
background,
that 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 might alarm me a little bit. Just
no,
just just a
it
little.
shouldn't. But you get my point. You get what I'm saying,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
I mean,
No,
you
I
don't
I
you
I wholeheartedly understand,
yeah.
Patty. Daniel Jones might be, because you're right. He has all the physical characteristics, and Joe Shane has said as much. He has, when you look at what what you look at for quarterbacks, when you scout them, he has all those things. It just, it hasn't translated or whatever. When I look around the league, Patty, you look at Baker Mayfield. You look at what Sam Darnold is doing in Minnesota. You look at Geno Smith. You look at Justin Fields is winning games in Pittsburgh now.
Mhm.
Daniel Jones might be the next guy, Patty. He might be the next guy to go somewhere else and succeed in a way that he hasn't in New York. He might well be, because there's a lot of water under the bridge with Jones and a lot of coaches and a lot of negativity and all of that. He might be the next guy. You don't know. But
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to get significantly better than what we've seen from Jones, over the last 5+ years.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I hate to say it, but I think a fresh start is needed by both sides.
And I
I said it before this, the season started, back during the draft. That's why I was kind of surprised that they didn't get a quarterback in here. And I haven't really changed my mind. I mean, if you're Daniel Jones, you know that they tried to trade over you to get a replacement in here. You're going to tell me that that didn't sit well with him? I mean, he even said, "Look, you don't like it, but he's trying to do his job. He's trying to be professional." I tip my hat
Mhm.
to him for that, because some people would just be like, "All right, you wanted to replace me? The heck with you," you know?
Right.
But he's not like that. So I
Right.
give him credit
No.
for that.
No, I give him credit. I always give him credit for, he has always
Been a
done and said
professional.
the right things. He's always been professional. He's
Mhm.
always represented the franchise in a good way, and you have to give him credit for that much. You
Yeah.
really do. Patty, let me ask you this: 1-3. Um, what's your level of of optimism at this point that no, there's a ceiling with this team. It's not going to turn this around and go win 11 games. But what's your level of optimism that this isn't going to turn into a 3 or 4 win season?
Well, I mean, if history is any indication, when I have picked this team to win, they've lost, and when I picked them to lose, they've won. So maybe I'll just pick them to lose the rest of the season.
Oh, Patty, for what
That's
it's
what
worth,
that's actually what I did in 2011. I kept picking, it's funny. It's like I had to make these picks, and I said, okay, I'm going to take one for the team, and I don't care if my record is trash, in predicting these
Mhm.
games. I mean, no, I'm only joking. Obviously, it's just a coincidence, but yeah, my level of confidence in this team. I mean, they've got talent. They've got guys that can win games for them. They're
Mhm.
just, the first few weeks, and I hate this excuse. We talked about this earlier. The first few weeks were almost like an extension of the preseason. And that's got to stop because do we really know what this team is? We saw them struggle against the Vikings, a very good Vikings team. You know, they were a kicker away from winning against Washington, but still, could they have done more? I guess you could make that case. Then, they come out and they look dynamite against Cleveland, and you think, oh, okay, finally they've gotten back on track. And then they can't get into the end zone against Dallas, a weakened Dallas team. So do we really know what this team is? Do we know if they're going to be, what are they hanging their hats on? Is what I'm getting at. I don't know that I can point to one thing that they can hang their hats on. Can you?
I can name you one thing
Besides that,
besides, just throw the ball to number one. Period. Throw the
besides
ball to number one. That's what they're hanging their hat on, Patty. Just
and
throw
and
the
they
ball to number one.
and even that, I look, I love Malik Neighbors and what he brings to the game, but you can't, in my opinion, you keep going to him. Eventually, somebody's going to figure out how to stop that or slow it down. And if you don't have the other guys around him complimenting what he does, you're going to have problems. I mean, this is Odell all over again. Do you remember
Well,
how it was Odell, 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 and everybody was all excited? And then along came some defensive coordinator who figured out how to slow him down. And all of a sudden, the offense couldn't do
well,
spit.
you you have tight ends who are not being used in the passing attack. You have Jalen Hyatt who is not seeing the field, mostly because they're leaning into heavy personnel, which I understand. That's kind of how they want to play. And although the offensive line is better, they are also protecting the offensive line with with by using the second tight end, and Chris Manhertz a lot, by using the fullback on occasion. So they're protecting that line a little bit as well, which, to be honest with you, I don't mind, for the simple reason that I can remember for the last couple of years and at other times when you're struggling as an offensive line, and yet you're you're running 4 and 5 wides, and you're running empty backfields, and you're sending everybody out, and you're just using your offensive linemen, to try to block. You're using 5 offensive linemen to try to block 6 or 7 rushers, and you're not helping the quarterback at all in that way. So I don't mind the extra blockers, but I think you make a good point in the fact that at some point you've got to make sure Darius Slayton sees the ball. You've got to make sure your tight ends see the ball. You've got to make sure that you try to throw the ball at least a couple times a game to Jalen Hyatt. Spread the ball around a little bit. Not only, not only Malik Neighbors will make plays,
Mhm.
but you've also got to allow Malik Neighbors to spread the field and open up opportunities for other players as well.
Yeah. I mean, look, I get it. You have a great receiver in Malik Neighbors. I mean, the kid's exciting. He's
Mhm.
competitive. he right now, I think he's one of the, if not the main reason, Giant fans
Mhm.
are able to smile.
Mhm.
But, you know, I believe there is such a thing as over reliance. And, you know, the kids right now, he's in the concussion protocol.
Mhm.
He should be okay. At least I think he's going to be okay for Sunday. But this is a reminder that he's also human. As much as you'd like to keep him healthy, he's going to get banged up and nicked up. What do you do if you don't have him? God forbid.
Mhm.
So that's
Right.
where you want to show and that, yeah, we rely heavily on him, but we also have other guys that can burn you if you decide to take Malik Neighbors and try to minimize the impact that he can make.
Right. And teams are beginning to do that. Anyway,
Mhm.
Patty, I really have two more questions for you before we wrap it up. At this point, when you look at this team, we've talked about the quarterback play, we've talked about Daboll, we've talked about about a lot of that stuff. But when you look at this team, other than what we've already talked about, is there something that really bothers you about this team that you're really disappointed with, that you really look at and say, that's that's just a problem that I don't know how they're going to be able to fix?
Just that it seems like every week there's a new round of self-inflicted wounds. Now, I'm not looking for perfection from this team, not at all. I mean, nobody's perfect, but these self-inflicted wounds, whether they be a penalty, whether they be a drop pass, they are happening at the worst possible times. They are circumventing scoring opportunities, or they are allowing the opponent to score. And you just sit there and you just want to pull your hair out and say, when are you going to clean this up? Every week we hear it from the
Yeah.
players and the coaches. We got to clean stuff up. We got to clean stuff up. But
Mhm.
every week it's like a new round. And
How many times have they given up first downs on 3rd and 13 or
exact
3rd and
that
15? And
too, that
some of them
too.
are, and sometimes the other team's going to make a play.
Right.
But the bottom line for me, the bottom line is, at 3rd and 15, as a professional football player who plays defense, on 3rd and 15, your bare minimum responsibility is, don't commit a penalty. Don't commit a penalty. Don't commit a stupid 5-yard penalty that gives the team a first down on 3rd and 15 or 16. That's your
Mhm.
bare minimum responsibility, is don't commit a penalty.
Yep, and we see
And
that. We
yeah,
see
too
that
many
too
times.
many penalties. Just again, I'm not saying play a perfect game. I mean, it would be nice, but we know it's not
Mhm.
realistic. But they're happening, and this is what's causing drives to stall. This is what's keeping them out of the end zone or off the scoreboard or giving the other team points. That stuff, and it drives me nuts because they know better. I know they know
Mhm.
better, but yet and they say they know better, but yet it keeps happening.
Mhm. And last thing for you, Patty, is when you look at this team, we talked about Malik Neighbors, who is on pace to set all kinds of Giants franchise records and all of that. Is there anything else when you look at this team? Um, Anything else right now that you've looked at through 4 games and you sit and you think, I feel really good about that?
Obviously, Malik, Dexter Lawrence is playing like Dexter Lawrence. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. I think the offensive line has not been the problem that I think a lot of people thought it would be. That's encouraging. Um, I still say besides Malik, Darius Slayton is not a bad receiver. I don't think Wandale Robinson's a bad receiver. Jalen Hyatt in his limited snaps, I don't think he's bad. I'd like to see more of those receivers, like we talked about. Um, the coaching, I don't think the coaching is as bad as maybe some people think it is. I mean, it's not perfect, and there's been some head scratchers, but I do think for the most part, Brian Dable sets his guys up to in good situations. I thought Shane Bowen did a kind of a nice job against Dallas in terms of walking that fine line of being aggressive, but not blitzing Dak Prescott, who will burn you. He's one of the
Hmm.
best at beating the blitz.
Hey,
So that's a positive.
yeah.
Um, the young safety, Tyler Nubin, is playing well, as is Jason Pinnock, who's in a contract year. Micah McFadden is playing well, which is positive. So you got a bunch of individuals who are playing well and performing well. You just need to kind of get those individuals together into clusters to where now the units are playing well and making the stops necessary.
And we shall see if the Giants are able to do that over the next few weeks, and in particular this coming Sunday against the Seattle Seahawks, all the way across the country, Patty. Where
Yeah.
and you and I will be sitting in our living rooms watching the game.
You ever been
Not,
to Seattle?
no, I have not. Have you?
I have actually twice.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
it's a nice city. I like
Yeah,
Seattle.
I
A little
have
on the
not.
rainy side, but then again, what are you gonna do?
I have not, but
Great
it,
seafood, by the way, out there.
not a seafood person, Patty.
Oh, I am. I love
Not a big
seafood.
seafood
Oh,
person,
I am,
but
definitely.
yeah. So anyway, I think that's probably a good place for us to wrap it up, Patty. Always appreciate it. Giants fans, be sure to check out Patty's work over on New York Giants on SI and Locked On Giants, where you can find her every single day over there, giving you all kinds of information. So check that work out whenever you get tired of my stuff at Big Blue View. So, which I don't know why you would, but I imagine that on occasion you might. So
It's just
anyway,
it's the glare, Ed. The glare in the head. They might get tired of that.
yeah, okay. I'll wear a hat from now on, Patty. I'll wear a hat. All right. I'll wear a hat. All right.
Okay.
Anyway, Giants fans, thank you as always for listening. Please stay safe out there. Take care of each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.